Jonny Jacobs, a finance director at Starbucks and also a trustee of the Mental Health Foundation. We're here in midst of yet another lockdown, and like most of the nation, you probably have the restrictions top of mind and thinking about the impact on your business, or probably thinking about Christmas shopping a bit like I am, or even crossing your fingers to secure that all-important Tesco delivery slot. But another concern of mine as a trustee of the Mental Health Foundation is around something that will affect us all. It is the anxiety, the loneliness and mental ill health challenges that so many of us experience in the run up to Christmas. And sadly, there are just some people around that might not make it to Christmas this year. Not because of the visible illness or the visible signs of an illness like COVID, but actually the more invisible one that we don't really talk to our friends and family about as much as we'd want to. And it's a shocking thought, and we don't focus enough on it. And for the last 10 months, we've talked about COVID constantly, a disease that in 2020 has taken the lives of over 1 million people across the world. But if I told you that a similar number of people die each year from a mental illness that leads to suicide, how does that make us feel? And it does. Each year, 800,000 people will take their own life. And it is so sad. And the difference between the two, of course, is that we've got clearer guidance on how to prevent those 800,000 deaths. So let me tell you why I think it's important for organisations to focus on this and for business to focus on this. Go into your pocket and see if you have a £1 coin. And if I offered you the opportunity to replace that £1 coin with £9, would you take it? Well, I'm guessing that you'd bite my hand off for it. All right, let's be a little bit more realistic. What about if I replace the £1 with £6 or even £4? I bet you're still keen to do the deal. Well, as a finance director, you can imagine that return on investment certainly appeals to me. Well, Deloitte believe that in the UK, for every £1 you invest, you get 9 back. And that's the ROI of investing in mental health prevention. Now let's just go global for a moment. The World Health Organization's latest study found that for every $1 that companies invest in prevention, you accumulate $4 in return. So with the global cost of mental ill health, $1 trillion, you can see that the cost is hitting companies hard in absenteeism and presenteeism and employee turnover. So in the short time we've got today, I'm just going to touch on a few things around mental fitness in business and why I advocate for it, and an example of a great mental health plan that delivered a return on investment, and more importantly, why this should be higher up on the agenda, both morally and right now because of COVID. And for those of you that feel there's still work to do in mental well-being, I suspect that stigma is getting in the way where knowledge is lost to ignorance, especially in the world of business. And at Pladis, the global snacking business that owns the likes of McVitie's biscuits and Godiva chocolate, and if you're like me, you've probably been tucking into one too many a Jaffa cake, we smashed that stigma and did something truly transformational. We went from a standing start to creating a holistic plan that led to a campaign that reached the entire nation. And the business and colleagues were so proud of it. Anyone can do it. And now at Starbucks, as sponsor of the Health and Wellbeing Initiative, I'm very privileged to see us put mental health on the priority list. Though I can tell you that in some organisations I've worked with, I've often felt rejected when trying to convince leadership to make this a top priority. And it's fair to say that it's not the first time I've felt rejected. You know, growing up, I felt quite physically and psychologically different as a kid growing up in a working class family in small flat in Glasgow, and those feelings of feeling different became all too familiar, and mental ill health was just something that I was surrounded by. I could feel other people's challenges, depression, anxiety, loneliness, and I can feel the effects it had on me growing up. And suddenly in my early teens, I was thrust into a position of feeling like I was bringing myself up alone. And a dark shadow really did start to grow. And there was no one around for me to say, let's talk. And I got to the lowest places, and I would fear I'd have nothing. I feared that one day I'd be living without a family under a bridge in Glasgow and what to do. But being good with money and numbers, I thought I should be an accountant. No idea why, just, first person in my family to go to university, and off I went. But I didn't enjoy it. I was focused too much on results. And then people started talking about internships, and I kept getting rejected for that. And then I feared about living under that bridge again. And so you can imagine how fortunate I feel to have worked for some incredible international businesses, and feel very grateful to be here today. And it was only a few years ago, back in 2017, when I was awarded the Young Chartered Accountant of the Year, that I really started to question my sense of purpose. And I'm sure that winning an award like that is something that everyone wants to shout about at a party. But obviously I felt really humbled. But as an introvert, somebody who's not gregarious, I was a guy that didn't even go to the pub at uni. The thought of being on a platform to be an ambassador representing the accounting profession, and like I say, it's not quite as dull as it sounds, for the whole year just filled me with anxiety. And I was asked to attend meetings and speak on behalf of all the chartered accountants. And one thing I went off to do was to go to a conference called One Young World, effectively like Davos, but for young advocates. And I sat there and heard from world leaders, current and past presidents, asking us to make the impossible possible. And then a number of actresses exposed effectively #MeToo and shared their experiences of mental ill health. And I sat in that audience and I realized, I guess, that fear has driven me all my life. The fear of not having a family to fall back on and not having a roof over my head. And something happened. I think I turned that fear into a sense of purpose. And I knew I had to take this opportunity to come back and use the voice I had on this chartered accountants platform. And I felt like I found my voice. So back in the UK, I took the opportunity to talk about mental health at the Chartered Accountants admission ceremony. Now, finance folk, rarely admit they've got a feeling, never mind an emotion, never mind mental health. So I felt, let's put myself out there. And I remember at the time, the feedback I got was incredible. And people came up to me afterwards and said what a difference it made. And I realized that each time we talk, no matter what context, we send a lifeboat of hope. And maybe my role was to send out more lifeboats. So at the same time, I was the strategy director at Pladis, and then there was still a lot of stigma around mental health, and we put our best foot forward. We signed this mental health pledge to break the stigma. And you can imagine I naturally gravitated towards the pledge, and I became the exec sponsor. And we created this internal program supported by the most amazing ambassadors, 120, just wonderful people who volunteered their time. And we made a commitment to training and campaigned and raised awareness. And we spent a lot of time getting the language right to create the mission to support people in tough times and to promote positive mental fitness. And we started talking about things like psychological hazards. I didn't even know what that meant. And then we realized that, you see a sign that says, don't slip or don't use your mobile while operating machinery, but where's the sign that says no bullying, or the sign that says, no emails at the weekend? And if you remove psychological hazards, you can create psychological safety. And we started talking about this, and there's plenty of studies that show when you create the environment of psychological safety, it's okay to fail. And there's evidence that shows that drives innovation in company growth. And it started to become a business priority. And it led to something incredible, a commercial campaign with McVitie's and mental health charity Mind. And it was the first ever social value and brand partnership in the 180-year history at McVitie's. And Let's Talk, by being kind to your mind with McVitie's in mind, was the message that was seen across the UK. And importantly, it raised money for mental health services. And for those more commercial out there, it sold the highest amount of digestives in some of the major grocers. And it came with a lot of pushback, but we had the business case to back it up. Well, now at Starbucks, I feel so humbled to be the sponsor of the mental health initiative across Europe. And my core values very much align with the strong values at Starbucks. And you can see that inclusion is key for them. The What's My Aim campaign, supporting transgender community, is a great example of breaking stigma in a powerful way. And now my focus, I suppose, now is really around mental wellness. And there's a great quote: if we don't take time to focus on our mental wellness, then we're forced to be focused on our mental illness. And I say that to myself over and over again. And I encourage organizations to look at the things they do around mental health and wellness, because 9 times out of 10, if you look at the tools, things like employee assistance programs or mental health first aiders, they're focused on illness. But how do we flip that? How do we flip that into well-being and focus on prevention? And I guess that's why I also love the work of the Mental Health Foundation, because it's focused on tackling the challenge of mental health prevention and positive things like kindness as well, which was the theme of Mental Health Awareness Week. So why is mental wellness so important today? Well, firstly, we know COVID's had a massive effect and it could hit business and society hard. We're working from home 2 hours longer to achieve the same productivity and struggle to draw a line between work and life. A more recent study by the Mental Health Foundation found that since the outbreak, 3/4 of people feel more socially isolated and 2/3 feel higher stress, anxiety, loneliness has increased. And financial security is a key determinant of our mental health. And sadly, the impact of COVID is going to hurt the lower paid jobs and those financially less secure more. And how often do we take a step back and think about the ripple effect that business restructuring will have on the world's mental health? And those people that are unemployed, twice as likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, twice as likely. So we're storing up problems that could cycle back into the private sector. So bringing us to a close, for me, I feel like I've had an incredible opportunity to, I suppose, turn my fear into finding a sense of purpose, and it helps my own mental well-being. But I still do fear for all the young people out there, everyone for that matter. And maybe there's somebody out there they might want to say, let's talk to. And maybe that will happen. And on the business, front of mind, I say support with kindness. And maybe the business's mental health might also improve. Mental health is indeed the issue of our generation. And if you don't believe any of that, just focus on the £4 you'll get back for the £1 that you gave me at the start. Really appreciate you listening. Thank you.